Hi everyone, and welcome to Foundations of Java, lesson number 4. So we're first going to start off with a review, and normally we would do a Kahoot, but this time we're going to review if statements again, and it's kind of hard to do through a Kahoot, so let's just quickly write an if statement. Our goal is to write a simple if statement that will print out you know how to write an if statement when true. You want to use variables, conditionals, and of course, an if statement. Now you guys can do this on your own, but since it is the review, I'll just write it out. Let's see, we want something that will print out when true. So there is something we can use called a Boolean, which gives a value of true or false. Or what else we could do is we could just set something using a conditional, we can make an int, and we can say if, and don't forget the parentheses, this variable is equal to something, which in this case it is. And remember, when you want to set a conditional, you have to use 2 equal signs for checking if it's equal. You want to do an exclamation point and an equal sign to say that they're not equal. And the same thing goes for less than, greater than, and all those stuff. So right now we're just gonna see, because I do want this statement to be true, I'm gonna check if this variable is equal to 0. So we're gonna have our braces over here. Remember, it's shift and then the key right next to the letter P on your keyboard. And when you press enter, it'll automatically format itself to like this. So once you have something inside here, we can start typing. And looking back, we want this piece of code to print out you know how to write an if statement. So I'll just take that. And remember, how you print something is system.out.println, parentheses, quotations, and there. Add your semicolon at the end, and that should work. You might realize that I have some user input stuff here, like the scanner, but I'm not really using it. Because I have used this same file to do other stuff, I just kept it there. But let's run this and see if it does print out. Wow, oh my God, I know how to write an if statement. I'm sure you guys know how to do it too, but this is a simple way to do it if you want to see how it works with the Boolean. We haven't really introduced it that much, but as I said, it's something that holds the value of true or false. So Boolean is an all lowercase, so declaring all variables, you would write the data type first, and then I'm just going to call this example. And let's give it the value of true. Right, so I think I can write if example equals true. Same thing as before. And I think that should print out the same thing. Booleans aren't really going to be used that much in the projects that we're doing, but if you want, this is just another way to do the same program. Let's move on to our lesson. We're going to be talking about while loops. And I'm sure any person who knows how to code is going to tell you this is an important part of computer science, and especially Java, because of one particular reason, that it saves you from excessive typing and copy paste. Because what if you want to print out the statement hello, but you want to print it out 5 times? You could just do system.out.print hello and then copy paste it 5 times. But that's just, why would you do that? So here we're introducing a new way to do that same thing, but an easier way. So while loops, here are its structure. So we have the word while, all lowercase, and how this works is that it will run the condition in the parentheses while the condition is still true. So here we have the condition, we have our curly braces, and inside I have system.out.print true. If we look at this one in particular, we just have 1 is less than 3, which is true, right? So this will just print out true. But then once it finishes this, all this printing out true, what it'll do, it'll go back to the top of the while loop and do it again. I was going to show an example, but we'll just go on to the next slide, endless loops, with the nice caption on here to beware of them, because if you don't have a good enough computer, it will crash it. And honestly, it's just really annoying to keep having your program just like continuously printing out stuff. So if you look at this is pretty much the same thing as on the last slide, except this time I just made a variable, which was 1. And this time it's just going to print out 1 every time, because once it goes down here, it prints out 1. It goes back up, prints out 1 again, just have 1, 1, 1. So how do we fix this? Would be, we got to stop making this 1 all the time. It doesn't always have to be 1, right? So let's do the same thing here. We're going to make an int called I, and we're going to declare it as 1. So while I is less than 3, we want to print out the value of I. But after that, after we print it out, we don't want it to continuously print out 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the value of I. I'm going to say I++. And remember from our last class, this is a shortcut to just like add 1 to the current value of I. So this, it would print out 1, yes. Then the value of I will be changed, and instead of 1, it will be 2. So it goes back to the top and it checks the condition. Is 2 less than 3? Yes, it is. So then it'll print out 2, and then I++, then I is 3, and then it checks the condition again. And 3 less than 3. That's not right. So then afterwards, this loop would quit and it'll be done. And just to make sure it quit, I'll just say, that's all. Okay, let's print this out. Yeah, basically we have 1, 2, loop quits, that's all. So that's how we write while loops. So let's do an example, right? What we're basically going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing, except we're going to write a program that prints out all of the multiples of 7 from 50 to 100. We're going to use the while loop. We're going to use our if, else statements, and we're going to use some arithmetic. And this should be our result at the end, except there are a few more numbers. I just couldn't fit them all. So, but you can check your first 4 numbers with mine here afterwards. So you can try this by yourself, but I am also going to write this one. So we have print out all the multiples of 7 from 50. So the first one would be 56. So I'm just going to declare a variable. I'm going to call it number. That's simple. And it has to be a multiple of 7, the first multiple of 7, starting from 50, so 56. That will be my original number. And after that, we're going to implement our while loop. So while number, and we want our number to be between 50 and 100. And it doesn't matter if it's inclusive or exclusive, because 100 isn't a multiple of 7 anyways. So we're just going to do less than 100. Or if you want to say inclusive or exclusive inclusives, just put an equal sign. So while our number is less than 100, we want to print out that number. And when you have a multiple of 7, to get the next multiple of 7, what you obviously want to do is just add that number to 7. So we have number plus equals 7. And plus equals was another one of the shortcuts we learned last time. And just looking at that, actually, I think that's it. It was a pretty simple example. We have our number, and we have while this is this. That'll give us all of the multiples of 7 between 50 and 100. Yeah, there we go. You can check using a calculator or anything to make sure they are multiples of 7, but I'm looking at them and they're multiples of 7. So yeah, that's how you do it. So the next important topic we're going to cover is formatted printing. Let's see if I can find something from last class. I think it was, what was one of the, we did a project. Oh yeah, the investor. We did an investor project and we calculated what was the hours, the rate of this investor after they were, buying and selling and all that. So basically, when we try to run this and we didn't put in numbers that were divisible by the numbers of hours worked, then we got a number with a bunch of decimal places after. Let's just run an example of that. Okay, we have the name of the furniture piece. I don't know, do any of you have some suggestions? What should we buy? I'm thinking another table. Okay, let's buy glass table. It's classy. The purchase price, 48. How many hours? 11. How much did you sell it for? 1,000. And look at that. All of those decimal places. Now here we're going to fix that. Because in money, it only goes up to the hundreds. It stops there. We don't have any of this. So that's what formatted printing is for. So formatted printing. Let's see how this works. So how it works is it's similar to our regular printing, right? System.out.print, but instead of ln, we have an f. So we'll just type it out similarly to system.out.print ln, right? We have our parentheses, our quotations. However, here's what we do is we have these things with the percent sign, and I have a period, I have a 2, I have an F, and then I close the quotation marks. And I forgot a comma here, but there should be a comma, and double, which is the variable name. So let's explain a bit more what's going on here inside the quotation marks. So I have percent sign 0.2. Now, what that basically wants to say is that after a decimal point, I only want 2 numbers after it, right? And then this F over here, this F is a flag. And you know how flags can be like landmarkers and whatever? This flag stands for like a flag for doubles. And over here, we have our double variable. So before we actually start implementing these in our code, let's take a little more information on about these flags, right? So our data types, right? We talked about strings before, we talked about ints, we talked about doubles, and we used them in our code. Now, if we want to use them in formatted printing, because it is also possible to format strings, ints, and doubles. It doesn't have to be just chopping off a number after a specific number of decimal places. For an int, we can say, oh, I want my int to have this many zeros before it, or I want to have this many spaces. But let's just take a look at it for now. So we have a %s, this is for string, %d would be for integer values, and %f would be for floating points or decimals. Don't get confused with doubles and %d. Remember, integer, %d, doubles, %f. So let's do an example, see how this works, right? write a program that prints out the results from numbers 1 to 6 divided by 7 to the hundredths place. We're going to use while loops. We're going to use formatted printing. So let's get the while loop just set up first. I'm actually just going to repurpose this. So int, this time we want it to be 1. And while our number is less than 7 or less than or equal 6, both work because they're ints. And we don't want system.out.println, but we will change that. Instead here, we're just going to do number plus plus to increment by 1. So now let's change this regular printing statement to formatted printing. So first off, we will get rid of the L and the N, and we'll replace it by F. Formatted printing, system.out.print F. So remember, we had those quotation marks, right? We had the quotation marks, but what was in the quotation marks was a % sign. So first off, rewrite that. And I said we wanted the results to the hundredths place, right? So 2 decimal places. So what I would do is I would do the dot, the period, and 2, signaling I want 2 decimal places after. So, and after that, I do F. First off, I forgot that we were supposed to be dividing by 7. So let's declare another variable. This time it's a double because these are not divisible. So double, I'm just going to do number 2 for simplicity. And this number is going to be equal to number divided by 7. Remember, the slash key denotes our division. So once we have that, then we can do system.out.printf. And this over here, the flag and everything, will refer to this double, number 2. So afterwards, we put a comma, and then just the name of our variable. Let's see if it works first. That is not right. Oh, another thing to mention is that how all of these are cramped on one line? When we had println before, it would give us the new one on a new line. So here, in order to kind of replicate that, we have to do it manually. We gotta do \n. This backslash is not the same as a slash because it's a backslash. You can find it pretty much to the right of your keyboard. It should be 3 keys away from the P to the right. If I just change this to a double, will that work? Yay. Oh, okay. So it was meant to be a double. I guess just to be safe, you should just keep all of your values as doubles. Because I'm not too sure. This should be running fine because if you had 1 double and an int, it should also give you a double. So I'm not entirely sure how that works. But yeah, just like that. That's how we would do it. So in these quotation marks, we would have the % sign, 0.2, the flag, and then to put it on a new line, \n, and then the name of variable after a comma. Let's get started on our project. We're going to do an area table project. So our goal is to print out a table so that while the radius goes from 1 to 10, the area also increases accordingly. So the formula for a circle, we'll find the area of a circle, is pi r squared, r being the radius. So for pi, pi is 3.14159, but we can just use the value 3.14, or we can use math.pi. And math.pi is just pi with all of its digits. So in order to use math.pi, all you have to do is type in math.pi. And this is exactly how you should type it out, capital M dot capital Pi. So what you're going to use is formatted printing, because I do not want to see any numbers with more than 2 decimal places. And you're going to use a while loop to find all of this. And if you're able to, you might find a way to use formatted printing to get it exactly like this, so that all of it is lined up on one side with a certain number of digits allowed, and it looks like a table. Now, I don't know if you guys can do that, but I'll give you guys some time to figure it out. And I think about 10 minutes from now, I'll explain how to do it similar to this table like. So if you haven't figured it out by then, that'll be how you do it. But for now, you can just get everything else set up. You can get your radius, your area, 1 all the way to 10. Okay, I've given you guys some time to work on the project by yourselves. And most of you have gotten to the point where you found all of the areas. So, but now I realize most of you haven't implemented the table. Then you just have one column with the area. So let me explain how to do that. Basically, what we do is an extension of our formatted printing. So I just wrote out a few notes. So you know how I have here radius and area? Well, the most simplest way to do that is to just add a bunch of spaces, right? And you probably should count that, right? Or you could use formatted printing. So here, what we have is I'm using %s, and %s will be for the strings. But here I don't have a dot because I'm not talking about any decimal places at all. So what this basically means is that I want 7 spaces for my characters and everything to fit in. And for radius is radius. That is 6 right there. So, but I gave it 7 spaces. So what it'll do is it'll just add another space right before it. So this is how it will look when it's printed out, space, and then radius. And here I have %12s, right? And this refers to my area over here. So then it'll just have 8 spaces before and then area. So %7s means you're expecting a string of 7. 12 means you're expecting a string of 12. And here we have our backslash to indicate a new line. So here we go. We have our radius equals 1, and we have this set up. Now, I want you guys to find a way to do this, right? The %7s, %12 thing. But instead of doing it for just your radius and area, I want you guys to find a way so that every time you print out the radius and area, it's also in the same table format. Okay, so I said I'll give you guys the rest of the time, but if you guys want to see it now, I'll just show you guys for now, because there is a class after this that One Word Anchor is also hosting. It's a class on Math Kangaroo, and I'm not teaching it, but the class is right after mine. So we're gonna have to end class a bit early. So I'm just gonna show you guys what I have for the stuff about the table. So as all of you have, the radius and your while loop. Okay, so here's what you do. Remember how there's 7 characters up here for your string, right? You just do this down here, but instead of an S, you do a D, because, you know, D for integer, and that's an int. And over here, we still want 2 decimal places after, right? So we still have this 0.2, but we want 12 spaces for it. So this would be 12.2, and then F for double and area. And we have radius, increment by 1. That's how we do it. Let's just to see that it does go from 1 to 10. Yeah, there we go. And now we have all of the areas of all circles with radiuses 1 to 10. And that's how you would do it. If you want to extend this table to more extreme radiuses and your numbers start to, intrude on the other side of the table, what you simply want to do is just like change this 12 to a bigger number. So let's finish off class. Thanks for making it to the end, guys. So follow our socials on YouTube, we're One Word Anchor. And that's our email right there. My email is also there. So if you have any questions or you want the slides after this or any of my solutions to the project or any other example we've done, just send me a quick email. So yeah, that's it for today. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.